Hello, welcome to Mission Backlog. This is the first review in this backlog playlist series. Check out my playlist video if you want to see what other games are coming up. Far Cry New Dawn is a first-person open-world shooter developed by Ubisoft Montreal and released in 2019. I played it on Xbox Series X, though it's available on the PlayStation consoles, PC and earlier Xbox consoles as well. I played it for around 15 hours and unlocked 535 gamer score for you achievement hunters out there. I'd say it's probably another 7 to 10 hours to 100% the game. During my time I beat the main story, I liberated all outposts, unlocked all but one companion and completed several side missions, so I spent a decent amount of time in the game. So what did I think of my time with Far Cry New Dawn? So, let's start with the story. It follows on from the events of Far Cry 5, around 20 years later, and takes place in a portion of that same map, though with changes to the environment as you'd expect due to the result of a nuclear fallout. You're the usual unknown protagonist, as in most Far Cry games, this time known as the Captain, and you were part of a crew travelling across the country who are helping people and colonies post the fallout. There's the expected shit hits the fan moment in the opening scenes, as in all Far Cry games, and then you are thrust out into Hope County to help a community take down the evil twin sister antagonists. The antagonists, I have to say, are the worst I've seen in a Far Cry game, and lack the presence of the previous villains such as Vass or Joseph Seed, who I thought were brilliant villains. I was trying to put my finger on why, and I think there's two main reasons. One, we don't know their motivations or really much about their backstory at all, aside from a couple of still images with voiceovers dotted throughout the game. You really don't know much about their history or where they came from. A few more cutscenes explaining what they're trying to achieve, rather than simply causing chaos for the sake of it, would have been good and helped to give a bit more kind of empathy towards what they're trying to do. Two, they're simply too immature, in my opinion. It's not believable that these two would be leading a huge army, and every time they're in a scene there's no sense of dread like there was with Vass or Joseph Seed. I think the idea of twin sister antagonists is a great idea and a good initial setup. I just don't think it was executed very well here. There are definitely other elements of the story that I did enjoy though, including a tribe of constantly high super warriors that have shunned technology in favour of a bow and arrow and wooden huts. They are led by Joseph Seed, the religious nut protagonist from the first Far Cry 5, and I think this side of the story was far more interesting. I won't go into further spoilers in this review, but there's some kind of good, interesting kind of piece of story and turns in that side of things. While exploring the world, you'll find interesting snippets of backstory from notes and conversations like you would in kind of previous Far Cry games, but I did find them more interesting this time round. I think just due to the intrigue of the kind of missing past 20 years and what everyone had been through with the nuclear fallout, I found myself reading a lot more of these than I usually would, and I think it would have been good if there was more of an effort to set the scene of what had happened and what people had been through over the previous 20 years through a few more cutscenes or more of an effort to have conversations with NPCs and things. But on the whole, it's kind of an interesting setup for the world as it is at the moment. Now for the most important part, the gameplay. You spend the majority of the game building up your community, rescuing captured allies, recruiting companion characters, shout out to Nana on that one, and generally fucking shit up on your path to taking down the sisters. There's the usual mix of main story missions, outpost captures, side missions and exploration that you'd expect from any open world game, especially Far Cry. The formula isn't mixed up too much, and the gunplay is as solid as it has always been, which I guess is one of the most important things. A point blank shotgun blast or a well placed sniper headshot will still hit hard, even after the umpteenth Far Cry iteration. I never get tired of using the weapons in these games. Gameplay starts off the same as previous games, though really ticks up halfway through with the unlock of some new abilities that haven't been in previous Far Cry games, and they really do change up the way you can play. the game changes into more of a kind of predator simulator, with the unlock of invisibility, super speed, strength, and double jump. It really is a nice change of pace. Really gives you a sense of power. And I don't know if this would be the same for everyone, but I didn't get these powers until about halfway through my playtime. And when I did, it was kind of a real nice change of pace. Kind of really encouraged me to carry on playing. So I would recommend to people that are thinking about playing this game of mainlining the story until you get these abilities, and then go back and do the outposts and side missions and things that you skipped to get to this point, because I think it does really improve the game, and it's worth getting earlier on. The abilities really do make you feel like a badass, tearing through outposts like a shotgun-wielding predator on crack, leaving a trail of bodies in your wake. There are some interesting mission setups with a variety of locations and atmosphere. I didn't find any missions repetitive, which I sometimes do in Far Cry games. I think that's because the game's not too long. And I was constantly motivated to proceed through the story and get on to the next mission. I think there was enough variety within the missions. The wingsuit returns, as well as the grapple, which makes traversing the environment on foot a joy, and I'd recommend traversing on foot. Vehicles are another matter. I've never found it enjoyable to drive in a Far Cry game, though if possible, I think they have made it worse in this game. I'm not sure how, but they have. I never feel like I have full control of the vehicle, and I'll regularly hit kind of invisible items, boulders, just randomly strewn across the road. It's not worth using vehicles anyway, though, because as soon as you set foot in one, you have the entire map shooting at you. In previous games, you could pretty easily drive around unnoticed. Kind of the enemy detection meters would fill up slowly enough that if you were driving full speed, you could get past them before they kind of locked onto you and started shooting. But I mean, unless I'm mistaken, they've now shortened that detection meter, and now as soon as they notice you, that meter fills up instantly, and they start shooting you, and they pursue you indefinitely, which kind of makes it pointless trying to drive anywhere. If you do, you're just constantly in fights with passing vehicles, and you never actually get to your destination. One of the worst effects of this is that as part of the game, you need to capture oil tankers for resources. You need to capture them from the enemies and then return them to your base. And even though once you've captured that, you're in their vehicle, they still recognise you and instantly start attacking you, which leads to the tanker you've captured and now been driving Mad Max style back to your base, exploding usually a few hundred meters before you get back, and leading to the last kind of 10-15 minutes being completely wasted. This did happen to me a couple of times in a row, and then I just dropped it. I swore off tanker hijacking for life. I actually do think this is deliberately designed to make it harder for you to gather resources. Why? Well, I think it's to encourage you to spend real money on resource packs. It's more egregious in this game than it's ever been. It's more of an RPG style in this game. And I think there's definitely more of a push towards microtransactions to buy resources to speed up progression. Now, I did beat the game without microtransactions, though there were some roadblocks where I was forced to replay already captured outposts to earn fuel to upgrade the home base. And you have to upgrade the home base as part of the story. So I was playing on normal. I don't know if you get more XP on harder difficulties, but I was at a point where I had no more story missions, and the only way for me to get the fuel which you needed to upgrade the home base was to replay outposts or capture these tankers, which I stopped doing because it was so frustrating. Base upgrades, guns, outfits, vehicles, treasure maps, etc. They're all upgraded and crafted using materials you find in the open world, which I don't mind as a mechanic. I think it works well in lots of games, though here it's clearly designed to be slow enough to encourage the purchase of resource packs. For example, I've beaten the main story, captured all the outposts and replayed a few of them, completed several side missions, and I still haven't managed to unlock the top tier weapons. It's extremely frustrating when you're trying to take an outpost silently and you headshot a guy with a bolt action sniper only for their health bar to drop kind of only a quarter. The guy then instantly spots you from half a mile away, alerts the entire camp, and your stealth run is completely over. It's another choice, I think, no doubt intended to make you try and spend resources on packs to get those better weapons to enable you to headshot these people in one go. I wouldn't mind them introducing kind of like RPG-like elements if it were well balanced. I mean, this was happening in some of the first outposts in the game. This definitely has a feel of it being done simply to frustrate players to the point of spending money. There are armor-piercing rounds, better weapons, etc. to kind of take these guys down in one shot. But as I say, they're all initially locked behind upgrades that require you to either grind or spend some real money to speed it up. I mean, some people may like that, but for me, in this style of game, I think it's just another barrier to enjoying yourself. Having said all of that, the guns, once you do unlock them, are awesome, as I think they have been in a lot of the Far Cry games. There's plenty of them, with some great variety, some great designs, great paint jobs, whether that's kind of a scoped compound bow, a saw launcher, or kind of the Gardener's Fury M249 LMG machine gun. There's plenty of variety to choose from, and if you're anything like me, you'll always be looking forward to and thinking about what you want to unlock next, which I think is good. I've got to give them kudos on the actual weapons in the game. Now finally, let's talk a little bit about graphics and sound. I'm a console gamer, so I'm not going to get into the details of kind of graphics and frame rates and things too much. I'll let the PC geeks do that. I'll say it looks good on the Xbox Series X. It runs smoothly at 4K 60 frames per second. I didn't notice any major frame rate drops or pop-in, which are the two things I feel really take you out of the game. So all in all, it looks and plays as well as far as I'm concerned. It's a nice looking world with a variety of very vibrant palettes. Get ready for a lot of neon pink. It gives off a kind of a Mad Max meets the Garden of Eden vibe, which I think works really well. I think the world looks really good. The lighting and water effects are decent, and I found myself on several occasions just stopping and admiring the view until a mutated cougar or something would jump my ass and bring me back to reality. Facial animations and cutscenes are good enough, and voice acting is pretty decent. It never took me out of the moment, so it's certainly passable. The weapon sounds are great, as I think they've always been in Far Cry games, with kind of meaty guttural booms for shotguns and magnums. I do love using a magnum in a Far Cry game. It's sharp whizzes for bows and silent snipers. The sound always feels right for the weapon you're firing, and the squelch of a headshot landing never gets old for me. The music in this game is hit and miss, I'd say. The ambient music in menus and when wandering the world is nice and unobtrusive. That I found myself turning off the radios after a while as soon as I entered vehicles. It's probably just not to my taste, but I feel the soundtracks on the radio stations and things just didn't really hit the right tone for the environment. You'll find the usual polish of a Far Cry game. There are a few small glitches, though nothing major. I didn't experience any crashes or game-breaking bugs or anything. All I experienced were occasional invisible objects blocking bullets, which can be a little bit annoying. Invisible boulders, as I said earlier, kind of on the roads, kind of occasionally sending my vehicle flying. And companions would sometimes get in my way, like when you're trying to get through a door or something, they just wouldn't move. But nothing that stopped or broke the gameplay fully, and they're all things that I usually forgot about a few minutes later. So to sum things up, it's effectively a large DLC for Far Cry 5, though one that mixes up gameplay to a satisfying degree and changes up the world just enough to trick you at times into thinking you're somewhere new. The story has some interesting moments, though on the whole is fairly forgettable, with the worst antagonist yet in a Far Cry game, in my opinion. The clear attempt to encourage microtransactions is very noticeable, and does lead to some frustration when simply trying to progress through the story. I'd say it's worth playing if you have enjoyed other Far Cry games, and especially if you've already played Far Cry 5. Though I'd say if you're not a fan of Far Cry in general, then it's definitely not worth your time. My rating system is a buy, so pay for it. Play it if it's free, so on Game Pass, PS Now, etc., or just avoid, don't play. I'd say this is a play if it's free. It's, like I said before, if you like Far Cry games, I'd say it's worth a playthrough, but probably not worth buying. So if you can get it free somewhere, there's plenty of places you can get games for free now. I'd say it's worth a playthrough. So yeah, thanks for watching. This is my first ever review, so apologies if it's a bit ropey. I will improve over time, hopefully. Please do consider liking and subscribing. I aim to have quite a few more reviews coming out. As I say, if you want to check out my playlist video for my backlog, it will tell you the next kind of 6 or 7 games that I'm playing and the reviews that will be coming out. So now on to the next one.